Okay, so we're in the middle of the wide lines on Vav Amud Beis. We just finished quoting Rabbi Chelbo's statement. The first word on the line is L'Roshenu, but we're on the two dots of that line. Rabbi Chelbo says that a person should be very careful about Mincha. That's when Eliyahu Hanavi was answered at Hara Carmel. So we talked about how Mincha is very important, and now we're going to talk about the other tefillos as well. So we have Rav Yochanan Amar. Rav Yochanan says for the first word on that line is Shetarad Eish, or the first two words. That's about halfway down the wide lines. Okay. So Rav Yochanan Amar, Rav Yochanan says after Tfilas Arvis, also Marav is important as well. That's also a very crucial time. Tfilos get answered at Marav Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk. Tikon Tfilasi Kataras Lefanecha Maseis Kapay Min Chazarev. That let my prayers stand before you, God, like incense, which is something that is brought after the last tamid, after the last korban of the day. So this is something that's happening at night. At least the second edition of the Kataras each day. The gift of my hand, the evening gift of my hand, please take. So we see apparently a reference to at least the avoda in the mikdash, which we correspond to Marav, which is the evening services. So that's also where we implore God to answer us. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says after Tfilas Shachris. Also, Shachris is very important. People can get answered in Shachris as well. Shenemar, as it says, Hashem boker tishma koli, boker erech alach v'atzapeh. God, this is a pasuk in Tehillim, I believe. God, in the morning, listen to my voice. In the morning, I will lay out for you my request, and I look towards you for answers. So, all three tefillos are times where a person could potentially have his tefillah answered, so they're all worthy of serious treatment. Rav Chelbo says in the name of Rav Huna, Kol hanena mis'udas chasan ve'eno misamcho. Anytime somebody enjoys a wedding feast and does not actually gladden the chasan and kala, they just they fast, they eat, and they don't do anything else. They don't dance. They don't make the chasan or kala any happier. So over b'chamisha kolos, that person has violated or passes over 5 different voices. Shenemar, as we say in the pasuk, and referring to a wedding that will return to Yerushalayim. Kol sason v'kol simcha, kol chasan v'kol kala, kol omrim hodu es Hashem tzavakos. All of these are different expressions of happiness and praise that take place when there's a chasana. So a person is letting all of those go, all those opportunities go, if he's not actually taking part in the chasana and making sure that chasana and kala are happy. Vim mesamko, let's say I do properly gladden the bride or groom, so then maschara, what's my reward? I'm Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says zocha leTorah. This person merits wisdom and knowledge in Torah. Shenasna b'chamisha kolos. The Torah was given also similarly with five voices. Shenemar, as it says when we're talking about Ma'amad Har Sinai, Vayhi bayom hashlishi. And on the third day, third day after the preparation period of the giving of the Torah, so B'Yosef Boker, it was in the morning. Vayhi kolos uvrakim. There were kolos, so that's 2 kolos right there. There were 2 voices and thunder. V'anan kaved al hahar. The cloud was heavy upon the mountain. The kol shofar v'gomer. There was a sound. That's number 3 of a shofar. Vayhi kol hashofar. Again, the mention of a kol. Another word kol. So that's number 4. V'Elokim yanenu b'kol. And God responded to Moshe with a voice. There were 5 kolos there. So you see that Torah was given with 5 kolos. If a person is mesameach and chasan v'kala, he will be zocha to those 5 kolos. So Eini, the Gemara asks, is that really so that there are only 5? V'hakasiv, but you have another pasuk within the Ma'amad Har Sinai narrative. The entire nation saw these sounds. So the Gemara answers, Osim kolos dekoda matan Torah. That those sounds that pasuk is referring to the sounds that we mentioned in all those previous pasukim. These are not new kolos, but simply describing the ones that we had already mentioned. Okay. Rabbi Abahu says, Ki'ilu hikriv toda. He goes on to say that no, if you're misameach a chasan v'kala at a wedding and you don't just let that opportunity go by, it's as if you brought a korban toda. Why? So Shenemar, the pasuk says, this is a continuation of that pasuk from Yeshaya, the Kol Chasan V'Kol Kala, that pasuk. So it says, Meviim Toda Beis Hashem, he will bring a thanks to the house of God. So he understands that at least allegorically to be referring to a carbon toda being brought. If you're Mesameach Chasan V'Kala, it's as if you brought a carbon. That's very good. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, also playing off the continuation of this pasuk, he says, Ki'u vona achas michorvos Yerushalayim. It's as if a person did his part and he rebuilds one of the ruins of Yerushalayim. This person essentially takes a step towards bringing the Geula. Shenemar, as it says, Ki ashiva shavusa aretz kevarishona amar Hashem. This is also in that pasuk in Yeshaya. I will bring back the captivity of the land. I will reinstate the settlement of the land like it was at first. That's what God says, and that's the end of that pasuk. So we see from there that perhaps if you satisfy taking advantage of this kol sasim, kol simcha, kol chasim, kol kala, so then a person is rebuilding Yerushalayim in some small way. Another statement of Rav Chelbo in the name of Rav Huna, kol adam sheish bo yiras shamayim devar nishmaim. Anytime a person has awe of heaven, this person's a yirei shamayim, so his words will be listened to. Shenemar sof davar hakol nishma, as it says, this is a pasuk at the end of Koheles. Right? Koheles? Yes. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, everything will be heard, and the final message of Koheles is have fear of God, have awe of heaven. Okay. So my ki zeh kol adam. The Gemara now asks, what about the end of that pasuk? What does that mean? What does it mean that this is all of man? Right? Obviously, it's some kind of a summation, but what exactly does it mean? Amar Rav Elazar. You're going to have a bunch of different answers that seem to indicate around pretty much the same message. Rav Elazar says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol ha'olam kulu lo nivra ela b'shvil zeh. When we say that this is all of man, I mean the entire world, not just all of man, but the entire world is created for this sake, for the fact that people should actually practice and gain Yirat Shamayim. Rabbi Abba Bar Kana says, Shakol zeh keneged kol ha'olam kula, that this attainment of Yirat Shamayim is equal weight to the purpose of the rest of the world's creation. Rav Shimon ben Azai Omer ve'amrei lo Rav Shimon ben Zoma Omer. Some say it was Rav Shimon ben Azai, some say it was ben Zoma. They say the following answer: Kol olam kulu lo nivra ela l'tzeves zeh. That the entire world was created only to accompany this, to actually assist the attainment of this trait. So they're all essentially saying that the world is all about attaining Yirat Shamayim. That's what it's all for. Okay. Another statement in the name of Rav Huna through Rav Chelbo. Kol sheyodea b'chavro shehu ragil litain lo shalom. Anytime you know that there's a certain individual, you're walking past him and you know he's somebody that you're on friendly terms with, he's going to say hi to you. So yakdim lo shalom. You should try to precede him. You say hi first. That's apparently a madrega, a level to be attained with regards to interpersonal relations. Shenem, as it says, bakei shalom radveu, where a person should seek out peace and pursue it. There is a certain alacrity that a person is supposed to have when he wants to be peaceful and friendly with others, that perhaps he should try to precede the other person before he says hi to you. Let's say you say hi to him. It's our fear anytime we say hi to somebody and we walk by. But if he doesn't say anything back to you, oh no. So Nikra Gazlan, the person that didn't say hello back to you, he's called a thief. Shenemar, as it says, V'atem bi'artem hakerem gazalta ha'ani bevatechem. This is a pasuk from Yeshaya, where he's criticizing Ganavim, but he says, more importantly, you are a thief from those who are poor. And Rashi says, what we're trying to bring out from this pasuk is stealing whether you're stealing from the poor or from the rich. So why do we emphasize poor? Because the poor don't have any physical possessions. What's the only thing that you could possibly steal from a person? His right to a smile, to a good morning, or something like that. So apparently that is viewed as gazela. That's viewed as theft in some way. Okay. Amar Rav Yochanan Mishum Rav Shimon ben Yochai. Now we're going to have a bunch of statements of Rav Yochanan in the name of Rashbi. So he says, Miyom shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu es ha'olam. Since the day that God created the world, Lo haya adam shekrol HaKadosh Baruch Hu Adon. From the beginning of world history until a certain point, there was nobody that called God the master of the world. Ad shebo Avraham. But not until Avraham came. Avraham was the first person to do that. Ukra Adon. He called God my master. Did I skip?
Yeah. Top line.
As God pray.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm on Zayin of a base. Okay, Zayin of an Aleph. I'm Rav Yochanan Mishum. That's my problem when I use sheets. Okay, sorry. I'm Rav Yochanan Mishum Rav Yossi. Rav Yochanan said the name Rav Yossi. How do I know that God davens? Okay, that's an interesting question. Shenemar, as it says, Rav Yossi Melhar Kodeshi L'Simachtim B'Veis Tefilasi. I will bring you to my holy mountain, and I will gladden you in my house of prayer. Tfilasam lo nemar. He doesn't say your house of prayer, the Jewish people's house of prayer. Ela tfilasi, my house of prayer, the prayer or the house of my prayer. Mikan she'akadosh baruch hu mispalo. You see from here that God davens. My matzli. Gemara says, what does it mean that God davens? Or what is he saying at least? Amar Rav Zutra bar Tovia Amar Rav. My Zutra said, "Yehi ratzon milfanai." May it be the will before myself. He's davening for his own ratzon. Sheyichbeshu rachmi eskaasi. That my attribute of mercy should overpower my trait of anger. Ve'yagolu rachmi al midosai. And also overpowering my mercy should overtake all of my attributes. I should treat my creations with mercy. I should go beyond the letter of the law, perhaps give them more than what they deserve in my dealings with them. So that's what God davens. He davens that He should be kind to us. Tanya Amar Rav Yishmael bar Elisha. Rav Yishmael bar Elisha said, Rav Yishmael was a Kohen Gadol at one point in his career. There was one time, this is apparently Yom Kippur, I went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and I was bringing up the Ketoros, the incense, part of the Avodas Yom Kippurim, for Isi Achteriel Ko Hashem Tzavakos, and I saw gives a long description essentially of God. Achteriel is an interesting term that we typically don't see for God, but anyways, Rabbi Yishmael says that I had a vision that I saw God, so to speak. Shehu Yoshev al Kisei Ramanisa. He was sitting upon a high and lofty throne. V'amar li, and he said to me, Yishmael b'ni, Yishmael my son, Barcheni, give me a bracha. Amarti lo, I said to him, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, may it be your will before you, God. Sheich b'shu rachamecha es ka'ascha. This is very similar to the prayer that we just said that God requests of Himself. But the bracha is that it should be your will, that your mercy should conquer your anger. Your mercy should overtake all of your other attributes as well. You should treat your creations with mercy and engage with them by going beyond the letter of the law. Very similar to that prayer. God nodded His head to me, you said good. The Kamash Malan, you learn from here. Rabbi Yishmael says, the bracha, the blessing of a light or non-significant person should still nevertheless not be viewed lightly in your eyes. The bracha has powerful impact from everyone. Kal v'chomer, right? If Hashem is somebody that will take a bracha from a human being, certainly all the more so we can accept brachos and enjoy them from no matter who they come from. Obviously the question is, what does it mean that God prays? We'll have to talk about that another time because we're in a very big hurry, but the start of an answer is that tefillah, prayer, doesn't just mean asking for something. It doesn't just mean asking for needs. If that's what it meant, then you'd have a very big difficulty here. God asking for something as if He needs it, but He can do anything. Tefillah means more than that. That's what we'll leave the answer for now. But I'm Rav Yochanan Mishum Rav Yossi. Rav Yochanan said in the name of Rav Yossi, Menayin she'ein meratzin lo la'adam b'shas ka'aso. From where do we learn that a person should not try to appease his friend while he's actually in an anger mode, right? There are times when you should try to make a person happy, try to speak to his reason. Times where that's not the case, when he's actually angry, when he's in the heat of the moment. Not a good idea to try this. First of all, this is a mission in Avos that says you shouldn't do this. It's in the 4th parak for this week, for those that are interested. But we're looking for a more fundamental source in the Psukim. Where can I find in Nach or Tanakh that this concept exists? The Ksiv says, Panay elechu v'hanichosi lach. Hashem says to Moshe, my face will go, and then I will allow you to rest. This is the whole episode of Moshe being passed over by God and being taught the Yud Gimel Midos. We're going to have a whole analysis of that whole narrative. But first, we're starting from this. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe. And the way we understand that verse right here is that God is telling Moshe, "Hamtin li ad sheyavor panim shel za'am." Wait here, wait in this cleft of the rock until my face, my expressions of anger leave, and then that will give you rest. That I'm upset at the Jewish people now. Just wait a few minutes, and I'll be happy again. But now the Gemara asks, is there really anger for God? It sounds like how can we attribute a midah of anger to Him? So the Gemara says, yeah, you can. That is okay. And we have sources to indicate this. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, and God is angry each and every day. Okay, and quote of the pasuk. V'kama zamo. How long is his anger? Rega. It's a moment. V'kama rega. How do you define a moment? Echad michameshes ribo ushmona alafim ushmona meos ushmona mushmona v'shah. It is 158,888 of a shah, of an hour, of a halachic hour. That equals, there are different girsaos here, but essentially that equals about 0.0611 of a second. So it's a very short amount of time. 1/16th. They said, okay, very good. Vizohi rega, and that is what qualifies as a moment. That's the amount of time that God is angry each and every day. No one is able to actually figure out when this moment each day is, except for Bilam. It said about Bilam, that Bilam was somebody that knew the knowledge of the Most High. He could get into them. It sounds like he could get into the mind. He had an understanding of God. But now the Gemara says, he didn't even understand the knowledge of his own animal, right? He had no idea why his donkey wasn't going one way or the other. So das elyon havayada, he knew God. It doesn't sound like it makes sense. If you don't know your donkey, certainly you don't know God. Ela malamed shebilam harasha. Ela malamed shehaya yodea lechaven osasha she'akadosh baruch hu koesba. Right? It must mean that it wasn't that Bilam knew God in an intimate, chachma kind of fashion, but that he simply had an insight as to when that one moment that God was angry. Behind the Amar Lahu Navi Yisrael, and that's what Micah Hanavi said to the Jewish people with regards to Bilam. Ami, my nation, Zacharna Mayahat Balak Melech Moab Gomer. Recall what Balak did to you, Balak the king, and my Laman Das Tzidkos Hashem. And then Psukim go and continue. They say, so that you should know the righteousness, the kindness of God. So what does that mean? Amar Rabbi Elazar said, Amar Lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. God said to the Jewish people through Micha, De'u kama tzidkos asisi imachem. You guys should know how kindly I dealt with you. Shalo ka'asti b'mei bilam harasha. I usually get angry for this one moment a day. I didn't get angry at all at any point of the day during this time that Bilam was trying to curse you. Sh'amali ka'asti. Had I gotten angry during that time, and Bilam knows when I would get angry, lo nishtayir misoneim shel Yisrael sridu fali. There would not be left of the enemies of the Jew, a euphemism for the Jewish people themselves. There would not be a remnant or a shred of them. My anger would have been expressed upon them.
Chumash specifically spell out that he was upset and angry at him?
At Bilam.
Yeah.
Right, that's true. Good point. All right, perhaps talk for another time. But essentially, meaning I guess anger in a general sense that could have been directed towards the Jews. He didn't make that happen during the day. Right? And this is what Bilam said to Balak. How can I curse that which is not cursed? How can I anger God when God is not angry? Right, so it sounds like God specifically made efforts to not be angry on this day. You see from this that all of those days God wasn't angry, and that's what saved us. How long is his anger? Rega, for a moment. We're reiterating. I'm not sure. I think this might be a different conversation that we're asking the same question again. But rega ukama rega, how long is a rega? We give a little bit of a different answer here. Amar Rav Avin v'Yisema Rabbi Avina rega kameimre. That a rega constitutes the amount of time it takes to say the word rega. That's how long it takes, which is a little bit more than 0.0611 of a second. So you get the indication that perhaps it was a little bit longer, that there are gersos before that don't seem to work. A lot of interesting things you could talk about Bilam having just that short amount of time. Tosus says, what could he possibly said during that time? I just want to say this over. It's a good Torah. But Tosus gives two answers. One is the word kalim, destroy them. Yeah. So you can get that in. But the second answer, which is more interesting, he says, no, you don't have to actually get the entire curse of the Jewish people out during that short amount of time. You just have to get your foot in the door. You have to get your curse started. So, and then some poskim say, actually, it's a garata, and we're talking about a Russia, so it's very unclear how you could learn this from this episode, but they say perhaps that's an indication that with regards to Hilchos Tefillah, you have to finish Mincha by Shkia, let's say. So you don't have to finish Mincha by Shkia, you just have to get your foot in the door. You just have to get Mincha started. Whether or not we paskin that way, it's complicated. But fine. Yeah, Shalosh Dara. How do we know? From where do we know that just a moment this is anger? Shenemar says Ki Rega Bapo Chayim Birtzono. That this we say in Mizmor Lasoda every morning before Baruch Shamar. There is just a moment of his anger, but his life, his I guess kindness is lasting, everlasting. Another source that it's just for a moment. Mehaka comes from here. Chavi Kemat Rega Ad Ya'avor Zam. This is also. Sorry, what's this a reference? Where's this a pasuk from? Yeshaya. So wait here, hide for a moment while my anger passes. And okay, so now when? Now our question is, so earlier we were talking about how long does God get angry for? Now we're asking, when does God get angry? How do I know when that moment is? Right, we said only Bilam is the only one that could actually figure that out, but we have an indication that perhaps there's another way to find out too. Amar Abai says, it's during the first 3 hours of the day. Ki chivra karvalasa de tarnagola. It's when there is a paling of the crown, the crest that a rooster has, when it goes white. And when that happens, while the rooster is standing on one foot. Okay, what that means exactly, not so sure. Kol shata v'shata namikai. But the Gemara says that happens all the time. Rooster's crest apparently goes pale fairly often. So what do you mean it only happens? It's only an indication of that one moment where God gets angry a day. So hagi kol shata is beis shuke sumke. So the Gemara answers, other times when the rooster's crown goes pale, there's still streaks of red that you'll find in it. Bahi shata leis beis shuke sumke. This one moment a day, there's a time where it goes completely pale, and that's how you know when this one moment has. Okay, so a story about this sign. How tzaduki dehava b'shababusei the Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. There was a certain Sadducee, somebody that only believed in the authority of the written Torah, not the oral Torah. So he was in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Havakav itzar le'tuva bekrai. He would always annoy Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi by quoting psukim that seemed to support his beliefs. Yom Echad, on one day, Shakal Tarnagola v'ukmei bein karoi the arsa v'ayin bei. One time Yoshua ben Levi said, I had enough of this guy, I'm going to do something about it. He took the chicken, he took a rooster, he tied it to his bed, and then he just stared at it. So he's looking for that one moment where God's angry so that he could, Gemara says, when the time comes when I somehow he'll be able to have the reaction time to get it in that split second. He said that when the time comes for the rooster's crown to go pale, then I'm going to curse this guy, and then it's going to be bad news for him. But when the actual time came, obviously it's a pretty boring thing to stare at a rooster's crown all day, and so Rav Yoshua ben Levi got a little drowsy and he missed it. Amar, he said, Shema mina lav orach ara l'mavet. Must be a sign from heaven. The fact that I missed it today is that it's not proper to do this. And as the pasuk says, God's mercy extends to all of His creatures. I should certainly not exhibit any character traits that go against that idea. And then another pasuk, to mete out punishment for a tzaddik to do so. That's not proper. Okay, Tana Mishmei Rav Meir. Bryce said in the name of Rav Meir, B'shah she'achama zorachas v'chom alechem mizrach u'marav manikim kaseim b'rosheim. That there's a time when the sun rises in the morning from the east and from the west. Yeah. When all the kings from the east and the west, they put their crowns on their head, they get their day started, and then they bow down to the sun. They're avodah zarah worshipping kings. That's when God gets angry. It's a particular affront to Him when kings, people that He gives over some of His power to, don't attribute that power to Him, and they do avodah zarah. That's what really gets Hashem angry. Okay. That's perhaps another time when you can figure out when God gets angry.
Aren't they sleeping in the first 3 hours?
Oh, so beautiful. We said, when does this happen? During the first 3 hours of the day. So that's the range that we said when kings wake up. Yeah. I don't think it wasn't that they wake up, everybody wakes up at the end of the third hour, but from the beginning of the day till that third hour, that's the range of time that kings wake up. In any event, there's a lot more to this Gemara, obviously. More than a Daf Yomi sure can cover. From Rabbi Yochanan Mishim Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yossi, Tova mardos achas belibo shel adam yoser mikama malkios. Better to have like an emotional jolt of hirhurei teshuva, of thoughts of doing tshuva in your heart that are self-motivated rather than getting lashes many times. the positive effect of internal motivation is better. Shenemar for Radva Esmi Aveha Vegomer. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Shir Hashirim. Yeah. And you.
Hosea.
Oh, Hosea. Okay, but there's a mashal of a lover and her spouse. But she goes after her loved one. The Gomer, the pasuk continues, and he's not there. V'amra elkava ashuva el ishi. She says instead of going to my mistress or my fellow adulterer, rather I'll go back to my husband, Harisham, my first husband, Kitov li az me'ata, because it was better then than it is now. So there's that internal motivation, which is very positive. Reish Lakish says, Yoser mimeya malkios. It's even better than 100 lashes. Shenemar, another pasuk, Tachas gara b'mevin mehakos kastil meya. Better to have the rebuke from an unav, somebody that is of an understanding nature, that knows to take messages to heart, rather than the strikings, the lashes of a fool 100 times. Meaning a person that learns lessons, he can learn it from a far less intense experience than getting lashes, better than a fool can get it from actual physical, externally imposed punishments. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan said again in the name of Rabbi Yossi, we're quoting a string of these statements through this chain of tradition. There are three things that Moshe asked God, and he was given them. He asked that the Shekhinah should come upon the Jewish people specifically, and God gave that to them. Shenemar, as it says, Halo b'lechtecha imanu. Right, Moshe says, how will we know that you're with us, God? We'll know when you decide to travel with us, as opposed to having a malach escort us through the midbar, and that was given to him. He asked that there should specifically not be this dwelling of God's presence on the other nations of the world that was given to him. It was granted to Moshe. That please make us make me and your nation wondrous, in distinction to the rest of the world. And that was apparently given, which is unclear because it seems like we do have Nevi'im that were from the Umos HaOlam, that were from the other nations of the world. So what exactly this means requires clarification. But not for now. He asked that God show His ways to Moshe, and that was given to him as well. Shenamar. Moshe said, "So dini na es darkecha. God, please show me your ways." Amar lefanav. And what exactly did he say? Ribonu shalom. What does it mean to know God's ways? Master of the universe. Why is it that certain tzaddikim good is done to them, and for other tzaddikim there's bad? Yish rasha v'tovlo v'yish rasha v'haralo. There are rishaim who have it good. There are rishaim that have it bad. What is your process of hashgacha? How do you deal with people? It doesn't seem to correspond to the way I think it should be. That it should be only tzaddik v'tovlo and rasha v'haralo. So Amar lo, God said to Moshe tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik and tzaddik. This is a difficult answer to understand. We're going to actually give a different answer soon. But the answer right now is if you see a tzaddik that has it good, he's a tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo, if there's a tzaddik that has it bad, tzaddik ben rasha. That's the tzaddik, the son of a rasha. Rasha v'tovlo, rasha ben tzaddik. If a rasha has it good, he's a rasha, the son of a tzaddik. Rasha v'ralo, rasha ben rasha. It's a rasha, the son of a rasha. So that's his answer. There's certainly much more you could try to figure out at least even what the havamina of this answer, but we're going to give a different answer right now. Amar Mar, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik ben tzaddik, tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik ben rasha, in reference to that answer we just gave. Aini, is that so? V'ha'ksiv. But we have a pasuk, poked avos albanim, right, that God visits the sins upon of the fathers upon the children. He seems to punish the children for the things that the fathers do. Uchsiv, but we also have another pasuk that says uvanim lo yamusu al avos, that the children will not be killed on account of their fathers. So how do you square those two pasukim? Either I am going to be faulted for the sins of my ancestors or not. Or Raminan, and we juxtapose those two pasukim and seem to lay out a contradiction. And we've answered this. Our tradition tells us that how do you resolve this difficulty? Kasha, there's no kasha. When a person still holds on to the ways of his forefathers, that's when they do get punished, even for the sins of their fathers. And when a person abandons the ways of his forefathers, those sinful ways, then he doesn't get punished for them. But anyways, you see from that answer that there is everything depends on us, not from who we come from. So how do you say that a tzaddik v'ralo situation comes from a tzaddik ben rasha? Rather, you should say as follows: tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik gomer. If a person is a tzaddik and things are going well for him, that's because he is a total tzaddik. There's really nothing on his record at all that deserves any kind of punishment. Tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik she'enu gamor. Tzaddik that has misfortune, that bad things happen to, that's because he's not a tzaddik gamor. He has a few mistakes that he makes here and there that he requires some amount of kapara for. Rasha v'tovlo, rasha she'enu gamor. If you have a rasha who has it good, he's not a complete rasha. He's done a few good things. God wants to reward him right now in this world, so then in the next world it'll just be pure punishment. Rasha v'ralo, rasha gamor. If there's a rasha that even has a bad for him, that's a rasha that has no merits to him whatsoever. He doesn't deserve any goodness neither in this world or in the next world. Obviously, this is painting with broad brushstrokes. We have exceptions to all of these things, but that's a general answer that at least perhaps speaks to us a little bit more than the previous one.
Is a rasha she'enu gamor like a tzaddik she'enu gamor? Aren't they like similar people?
They're both absolutes. A person whose behavior is absolutely good and a person whose behavior is absolutely bad. We got to go on. And this statement that we made earlier, that Moshe Rabbeinu's requests were granted on all three counts, that argues on Rav Meir's statement. The Amar Rav Meir said, "Shtayim nasnu lo, v'achas lo nasnu lo." Two of them were granted. One of them was not granted. The two that Moshe said about that he wants the Shekhinah to dwell on Klal Yisrael and that it shouldn't dwell on the rest of the world, those were granted. But the one where Moshe asks, "Please show me your ways," that was not answered. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Bani chosi es asher achon." God says, "I will be merciful towards those who I am merciful towards." I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I don't necessarily have to have a system that you could understand, Moshe. Afal pi she'eino hagon. I'm going to reward people. I'll be merciful to people even if they don't deserve it. V'rechamti es asher arachim. I will give mercy to those whom I will be merciful towards. Afal pi she'eino hagon. Even if the person doesn't deserve mercy. Essentially, this is a little bit of a tweaking of what we mentioned earlier. The system is not perfect in terms of tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik v'tovlo. There are obviously exceptions. Hashem says, "Listen, I have certain ways that can't be understood entirely. I'm going to be merciful towards whoever I choose. How I choose that is not something you're privy to, Moshe." So Moshe does not have an insight into God's ways. Okay, more discussion about this whole incident of Moshe after Chet HaEgel talking to Hashem. V'yomer lo suchal le'ros es panai. God says, "Moshe, you're not going to be able to see my face." Rav Yoshua ben Karka said, "Kach amar le'Hakadosh Baruch Hu Moshe." This is what that meant. K'sheratzisi lo ratzisa. When I wanted to show you my ways, you didn't want it. Right? This is at the burning bush where Moshe declines many things. Among them, apparently, getting an idea of what God's essence is. But now, Moshe, when you wanna see my ways, now I don't want to. It's so to speak, being a little bit vengeful. You didn't want to learn about me back then, so now that you want to, I'm not teaching you about my ways. This argues on another statement of Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yochanan, because of the three things that Moshe did at the Maisa at the incident of the burning bush, he merited three things. So apparently, this tradition views everything that Moshe did in a positive light. So Beskar Vayaster Moshe Panav, in the merit of Moshe hiding his face, Zachal Klaster Panav. That's how he got his shining face later on in the Torah after he comes down from Har Sinai. He's got this glowing countenance. Beskar Ki Arei, when Moshe said when Moshe hid his face because he was afraid. That's another quote from the pasuk. Zacha levayera migeshes elov. He was zochet to the fact that everybody around him, when he had his glowing face, was afraid to approach him. Beskar mehabit for the sky of another term that's in this pasuk of the burning bush, that he was afraid to look. Zaka levitzmunas Hashem yabit, that he was able to see the image of God, so to speak, during this whole incident of the Avar Hashem al Panav Vayikra. Okay. This is what God says to Moshe when he asks to show me your ways. So God says, "I will hide my face; you'll only see my back." Amar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Amar Rav Shimon ben Chasida. Rav says as follows: "Malamed shehira Hakadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe kesher shel tefillin." You see from this that we mentioned this yesterday, I think, that Moshe saw the back tefillin knot of God. What does that mean? For another time. Anytime God says anything for the good, some good that He'll do, afilu al tanai, even when He says He'll do this on condition, and the condition is not fulfilled, so you would think, so then God isn't bound to it. Lo chazar ba. Still, God does not retract from the promise that He made. Manalan. How do I know this? Mi Moshe Rabbeinu. From Moshe, it says by Moshe, Heref mimeni v'ashmidim. After the Chet HaEgel, God says, Moshe, get away from here, remove yourself, and I'm going to destroy these Jewish people. I'm going to start over with you, Moshe. We're going to make the Bnei Moshe. That'll be the start of a new nation. Moshe refuses, and then the Klal Yisrael is forgiven. But even though Moshe requested mercy and the decree was nullified, Moshe was successful. Right? He stayed with the Jewish people. Nevertheless, God's promise to make Moshe into a great nation was fulfilled. Shenemar, as it says, pasuk in Divrei Hayamim, I believe, Bnei Moshe Gershom Eliezer, Vayu Bnei Eliezer, Rechavia Harosh Begomer, Ubnei Rechavia Rabu L'Maila. Talks about the genealogy of Moshe, and Moshe's genealogy led to one stream that led to many children. Betani Rav Yosef thought with regards to this, Lamala Mishishim Ribo. When we say that he had a lot of progeny, it was more than 600,000 people. Asi Ravi, how does he know this? He makes a Gezerah Shava, a juxtaposition between the words. Ksiv Hacha Rabu Lamala. Right, it says in this pasuk in Divrei Hayamim the word Ravu, right, there will be many. And it says earlier with regards to that promise that God gave Moshe, Ubnei Yisrael, not with regards to the promise Hashem gave Moshe, but when talking about the Jewish people growing in Egypt, Ubnei Yisrael Paru v'Yishutzu v'Yirbu. The word Rav again there, that they multiplied, that they became great, so they became a nation of 600,000 people. So Moshe, when he had many progeny, also became 600,000 people. Okay, we're not anywhere close to the end. Rav Yochanan said in the name of Rashi. Miyom Shabar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es Olam Lo Haya Adam Shekro La HaKadosh Baruch Hu Adon Ad Shebo Avraham V'Karo Adon. We said this earlier accidentally. From the day that the world was created until a certain point in history, nobody called God Master until Avraham Avinu. Adon Ad Shebo Avraham V'Karo Adon. Until Avraham did Shenem, or as it says, Vayomer Adonai Elokim B'ma Idaki Rashena. Avraham said to God, and this is the first instance in Tanakh where you have somebody using the word of Adon. So Avraham's asking, how do I know that my children will inherit the land? But we're just focusing on the way Avraham approaches Hashem, that he calls him Adon. Amar Rav said, Af Daniel lo ne'aneh ela b'shvil Avraham. Even Daniel, a great tzaddik, you would think on his own merits his tefillos can be answered. No, still not on his own merits. It's only through Avraham. Shenemar v'ata shema Elokeinu es tefillas avnecha vel tachanuna ve'er panecha amikdashcha hashamim l'man Adonai. Right, this is a pasuk that we know from the long Tachanun. But Laman Adonai, please grant us my request for the sake of my master. Laman Chami Ba'ala, you should have said for your sake. This is Daniel talking to God. Why is he speaking about God in the third person? Despite the fact that we seem to do that in a manner of respect for great rabbis. Ela Laman Avram Shekaracha Adon. Rather, you should read it as not for the sake of my master, because he's talking to God, for the sake of he who called you master. For the sake of Avraham. Okay. Another statement in this train. Another question. How do we know again that you're not supposed to try to make somebody happy when they're actually inflamed with anger? Again, the same pasuk. Wait here, and while my anger fades, and then it'll be good for you. So again, we have this statement learned from someone else. Fine. Nobody thanked God, or at least we don't really have any indication in the Psukim that nobody truly thanked God until Leah did in the Torah. Shenemar, as it says, Hapam Oda Hashem, this is when Leah is naming Yehuda. She says, this time I will thank God. So that's the first, explicit mention of somebody thanking God. So we say, so to speak, that Leah was the first person to do it. While we're talking about naming children, so now let's talk about Reuven. What's Pshat with Reuven's name? Amar Rav Elazar, Amar Leah, Re'uma ben Beni Leven Chami. See the difference. See my son is literally what that word means, Reuven. So she's saying, see the difference between my son and the son of my father-in-law. A reference to Esav, right? My brother-in-law, Leah. The Ilu ben Chami, the son of my father-in-law, Esav Afagav de Midaite Zavne Levichirusei. That even though Esav willingly sold the Bechorah, he sold, as it says, he sold the Bechorah rights to Yaakov. Chazu Maksiv Bey. See what's written with regards to Esav. What's written, so to speak, the Torah wasn't written yet, but we know what happened in that whole incident. By his time, Esav es Yaakov, that Esav resented Yaakov. Uchsiv, and it also says Vayomer Hachi that Esav said the following. Vayomer Hachi Kra Shemo Yaakov Yakvini Zep Hamayim. He said, that darn Yaakov, he tricked me twice. Esav was very resentful towards Yaakov for what he did. V'ilu b'ni, but my son Reuven afagav the al karche shakle Yoseph levechirusei. Even though Yosef got the Bechorah, the firstborn rights, from my son Reuven, who was the true firstborn. Deksiv, as it says, that because of the incident that Reuven defiled the bed of his father, therefore his right to the Bechorah was given to Yosef. Despite that, my son Reuven was not jealous of Yosef. Deksiv, as it says, that Reuven heard Yosef's cries, and he saved him from the hands of the brothers. So you have this indication that Reuven is better than Esav, and that's what Leah was trying to indicate when she gave the name. This is obviously before Reuven did all these things, before all these incidents happened. We're talking about some sort of prophetic spirit that comes upon a person when they figure out the name of their child. So similarly, that's what's going on here. Rus. Okay, more analysis of names. What about Rus? My Rus. Why is she called Rus? Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan says, she was called that through prophetic spirit by her parents because what would come out of her child would be somebody that would satisfy Sheri Vahu. That's a play off or a similar word to the word Rus. Somebody, she would give birth to somebody that would please God through songs and praises. Minolam Neshama Garim. How do we know this whole concept that we're alluding to in the background, that a name causes certain events, or at least that it alludes to certain events? Rabbi Eliezer said, the Amar Kra, the pasuk says, L'chu chazu mipalos Hashem asher shemos ba'aretz. See that God is doing certain things that's going to wreak devastation upon the land. I'll take your shemos. Don't read it to be destruction. Ella shemos, the names. God is going to create names that are going to indicate the destiny of the world. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Another statement of Yochanan on the name of Shimon Bar Yochai. Kosh tarbus ra b'sof beisol shel adam. Horrible is the bad production of a household, referring to an evil doing son. Yoseph milchamas Gog and Magog. That's even worse than the war between Gog and Magog. It causes tremendous pain and sorrow. Shenemar, as it says, Mizmor LeDavid b'varchu mepnei Avshalom beno. We have a certain parak in Tehillim where David wrote this while he was fleeing from his son Avshalom, who was trying to kill him. And it says after that in that parak, Hashem ma'rabu tzarai rabim kamim alai. God, how much is my suffering? Many people go against me. But with regards to the war of Gog and Magog, the war that will be in the end of days between nations and the Jewish people, it says, Lama rigshu goyim umim yagu rik. Why do these nations? Why do they gather together, and why do they speak badly emptiness about me? But there's no mention within that complaint about Gog and Magog about us having an overpowering amount of tsaros. So it must be that the tsaros that a bad son creates is worse than the tsaros of Gog and Magog. Fine. More analysis of this parak in Tehillim. Mizmor LeDavid b'varchu mepnei Avshalom beno. Right. That parak in Tehillim, Mizmor LeDavid. Why is it called a song of David? This sounds very bad. Kino LeDavid mivayle. It should be a kino. This is David expressing sorrow over the fact that he's fleeing from his son who's trying to kill him. Sounds very sad. Amar Rav Shimon ben Avshalom. Rav Shimon ben Avshalom said, Mashal Amar Davar Dome. What is this similar to? L'adam sheyatza alav shtarchov kodem sheparao. Like a person who has a bill, an IOU document. He has to pay somebody, and before he does, he's very sad because he has his debt on his shoulders. But after he actually gets it off his shoulders, he pays that debt. He's happy. David, same thing with David. God said to me, I'm going to put bad on you from your house. David was very sad about this. Perhaps the person that's going to cause me such pain and sorrow will be a mamzer or an eved, somebody that will not treat me with a certain degree of respect. He won't have any mercy on me. But once he saw that the source of this tsar was his son Avshalom, he was very happy. Mishum Haki Amar Mizmor, and that's why he called this a song. It's in some ways he's gracious that the fact that this pain is coming from a source that he knows will have a little bit of mercy in it. Okay. Rav Yochanan said the name of Rashbi. You can mess with evildoers in this world. You can start up with them. As the pasuk says, those that abandon the ways of the Torah, they praise Rishayim. They flatter them, and that's a horrible thing. But those that keep the Torah, they mess with Rishayim. So you see, you have permission to do that. Certainly, if you're somebody that keeps the Torah. Tanya Nami Hachi, we have a brayso that indicates this as well. Rabbi Dustay Masan Omer Dustay said, "Mutter lehisgarus berasham ba'olam hazeh." You are allowed to mess with the Risham in this world. Shenemar oizvei Torah yahal Rasha. The Gemara, as it says, that same pasuk. So you have the Tanaim saying this as well. Vim lachshacha adam lomar. Let's say a person whispers in your ear and says the following, meaning that we're about to advance an incorrect argument and how to respond to it. The person will say, "B'hoksiv, you shouldn't start up with Risham because the pasuk says, Al diskab amran al dikane ba'osei avla." Don't mess with those that do evil, and don't be zealous with those that sin. Amarlo, so you respond to that person whispering in your ear, Misha libo nugfo omar is a king. Somebody whose heart pounds within him, somebody who's a nervous guy, who's afraid. They're going to interpret the pasuk that way. They're going to misread it. Ella al tiska b'mereim. You should read this pasuk as don't compete with those that are evil. Lios k'mereim. I mean, don't. The word tiskar could mean don't mess with them. It could also mean don't compete with them. Don't try to compete with them and say, oh, I'm going to do their ways. I'm going to be just as bad as them. Don't do that. Al tikane ba'osei avla. Don't be jealous of those that do evil. Lios ka'osei avla. I mean, don't be jealous and say, I wish I could do those things. That's how you should read this pasuk. It doesn't indicate that you should not mess with them. But Omer, and it also says another pasuk that indicates this: Al yikna libecha b'chatam ki im b'yiras Hashem kol hayom. Don't be jealous of evildoers. Instead, you should try to attain yiras shamayim all the days of your life. So now, Ani, is that so that you're supposed to mess up with the Rishon? The Amar Rav Yitzchak said, Imr Isa Rasha Sha'asha Misachekes Lo. If you see a certain Rasha that the time is going well for him, he's laughing it up, he's having a good time. Altis Garabo. Don't mess with him. Shenemar, as it says, Yachilu Darachav B'chol Eis. He is successful in his ways all the time. This is David complaining. He's laying out a whole bad situation. V'lo od. More than that, Ela Shazocha Bedin. This person will not just have things go well for him, but even in a court of law, things will go well for him. Shenemar, as it says, Marom Mishpatecha Minegdo. Your laws are very far removed from him. He can't get grasped. He's not in the clutches of the laws that we have. V'lo od Ela Sharoa B'tzarav. And Sharoa B'tzarav. More than that, he'll see the pain of his enemies. Shenemar, as it says, Kol Tzarav Yafiach Behem. All of his enemies, he just puffs at them. He doesn't take any care of them, and he's successful. So, sounds like you're not supposed to mess with the Russia. Everything goes well for the Russia. Don't mess with them. Lo Kashya, not a question. This is with regard those were said with regards to interpersonal matters. When this Russia is taking advantage of you, bothering you, don't mess with him. But when should you mess with him? When he causes an affront to matters of holiness, when he's perhaps living a certain lifestyle against Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu and ruining for everybody else. So then you should start up with him. You should try to stop him. An alternative answer: we're always referring to matters of heaven, but it's still not a contradiction. When you shouldn't mess with him is when things are going well for him. But a Rasha that's not particularly fortunate, things aren't going really well for him, so he's somebody that you can certainly contend with. You could also say an alternative answer: again, we're always referring to a Rasha that things are going well for, no contradiction. If you're a tzaddik gomer, if you're somebody completely righteous, then no bad should befall you, so then you can start up with him, like let's say Mordechai rising up against Haman. But if you're dealing with a tzaddik that's not a tzaddik gomer, who has some demerits, so God might use that opportunity when you mess with this Rasha to inflict punishment upon you, so better not to mess with him. To Amar Rav Huna said, what does it mean in this pasuk that God, how can you just watch those that betray you? How can you be silent in the face of a Rasha swallowing up somebody that is more righteous than this Rasha? Can a Rasha really, in fact, swallow a tzaddik? But it says, Hashem lo ya'azveni biyado. God does not abandon tzaddikim. There will be no bad instances that will befall a righteous person. El tzaddik mimenu boleya. Rather, the emphasis is only somebody who is more righteous than the Rasha. That's somebody that the Rasha can overtake. But tzaddik gamor, but somebody who's a complete tzaddik, eno boleya. He won't be swallowed, so he'll be fine. One more last answer. But at a time when the Rasha things are going well for him, it's different. That a tzaddik gamor could perhaps is the only one that can mess with a Rasha who things are going well for. A Rasha who things aren't going necessarily well for, your average Joe could start up with him. We'll have to end here. Please let Rabbi Krab to know that that's what we're up to.